Reading, learning, thriving, creating, while building, living, thinking, healing, loving, loving, building, writing while black, black, black.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, writing while black-ites. I am Angela and welcome to Writing While Black. I'm here with our co-host, Ayoka B. Say hello.
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 Hello. And today our topic is lessons learned from lit. Lessons learned from consuming literature and also lessons learned from producing literature. What have you learned from books? How have books impacted your life? Before we jump into that update, what's new and good with your writing life, Ayok? What you got going on?
Oh wow. I'm plugging away at Mike's story. I'm on task for February for Mike's story. I sent you a note. I was looking for some poetry because the drama continues with the phone, but we're not going to talk about that. So I have a lot of writing, a lot of poetry in my old phone. I was looking to see if it was in other places. I have this little box of knickknacks and stuff that sits on my desk. And I said, let me look in here and see if there's any jump drives in here. And there were like 4. One was from a photo shoot. But I looked through the other 3. And of course, there was writing on all of them. But one of them had a book I started writing. I thought it was lost to I was like, oh, wow. And I printed it out and read it. I was like, okay. So I'm still marinating on what, if anything, I want to do with that. I already pulled out a piece and added it to something else. Oh, I talked to my artist friend, Kiana Clark, that did the custom artwork for Love at Second Sight's cover. We'll be collaborating again for Mike's cover. So I'm excited about that. So she's marinating and absorbing kind of my idea, and she has some ideas, so I'm excited to see what she comes up with. That's my new and good.
You still have Chocolate City Lit coming up. When is that?
That's not till April.
Wow.
I might hold Mike's story and let that be its launch, its unveiling. Oh, I forgot. Wait, my newsletter. Hello. I'm very excited. It is called Black Ink, Brown Skin, Full Lips. I need folk to know who I is and who I write about. That's going to be launching in the next week or so. I'm very excited about that. And I'm doing some exclusives with that. People are going to get writing that I haven't released, and some little extras from Love at Second Sight and some previews from work to come.
Exciting. Congratulations. You done got on the newsletter train, girl. On the newsletter train.
I did. We'll see how the train,
It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. You got a good, robust list to start people to start with, and you already excited about what's gonna be in it. It's good. It's exciting. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So let me see what's new and good with me. I have started the daily sprints. The challenge with that is I feel like I really need to use the sprints for my writing, but there's always so much that I have going on and so much to do. So sometimes I'm using the sprints for reading, getting prepared for something that I have upcoming. And sometimes I'm using the sprints, like now I'm really excited about Kwanzaa and the bookish things that are going to go on during Kwanzaa. I've been thinking through that, using images and kind of like getting that going. That's all I got.
Okay. All right.
In terms of lessons learned from literature, I have it broken down in my head into 2 categories: literature or books that we have consumed, and also the act of creating and producing things. You said that the thing that you're thinking most about right now is what you've learned from being a creative. Do you want to talk about some of the lessons that you've learned from creating?
I would frame them as lessons per se, but I remember doing a post, this might have been a year ago, about the things that nobody tells you you're going to experience when you write a book. And I can definitely say writing Love at Second Sight stirred up all this stuff that I wasn't prepared for At that time, because I'm writing fiction, I'm thinking that it's not going to have any real world impact for some reason. I don't know why. I'm just telling you where I was in my headspace at the time. So it was a lot of inner work going on that I didn't know I was going to be doing, because it's a novel rooted in everyday life, and I'm writing about how the characters live their life and how they interact and go through things, and it had me reflecting on my own life and things that have gone on in terms of career, relationships, love life, family. You just start thinking about your own life as you're constructing the lives of others. That's the best way to put it. That surprised me. I didn't know that was going to happen. It was a good thing. It was good, but it brought up things that I hadn't thought about in a long time, and I guess were in there that needed to be teased out, that needed to be worked on. So it was a good experience. It was more emotional than I thought it was going to be. And another thing that comes to mind is poetry and short stories. In high school, I used to write short stories. I needed to get some things out. That was a time I've mentioned before where DC was on fire. I mean, there was so much shooting and killing, and it was just bad. I lost some friends to gun violence during that time. I was just writing. Writing was my mode of dealing with it, I guess. And so I would write these short stories. I transitioned later to poetry, and poetry helped me. I wrote so much poetry in college because, well, I had another loss, and my fiance was killed when we were both in college. I had notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of poetry. I still have them somewhere. A lot of it was dream. Some of it was nonsensical. A lot of just, stuff. Actually, the poem I have called Mule of the World shares the title of my first poetry book. That poem I wrote when I was like in the thick of it. I remember writing that. I feel like I was in the subway in Philly when I wrote that poem. That just came to me. Anyway, so yeah, writing, that's how writing started for me, as a release, as a way to express all the things that I guess I couldn't or wouldn't verbalize. So that's how it started. But I've always written, stayed a mode of expression, but I wasn't always writing through trauma. I never saw myself not writing. I didn't know I was going to write and publish something, but I always knew I was going to be writing in some way or another.
Yeah. I wasn't really thinking so much about lessons from producing so much, but one thing, because of where I am at the stage in my writing and also the stage of life, one of the things I looked up a couple weeks ago is depression as it relates to menopause and perimenopause, because I've been having feelings that, if I had these types of feelings before, it's been a long time ago with this intensity. Feelings of insecurity, inadequacy, and the writing, working on the book, stimulates that. One of the things that I have from my meditation practice, I'm a Vipassana meditator. When you spend 10 days meditating
Wait. You gotta break that down.
Okay, so Vipassana meditation, basically you go on, to learn it, you go on a 10-day retreat. And some of us have been on many 10-day retreats, and they're mostly silent. You spend 10 days meditating. You get a course, like you're getting training, you're practicing, you're quietly meditating. That experience, in addition to my cleansing process, so I haven't done it seriously in a while, but I used to every season do a 10-day cleanse. When I would do the 10-day cleanse, it would be like on day 2 or 3, I'm a vegetarian. I would feel like, oh no, I can't eat McDonald's. I can't eat burgers. I don't eat burgers, but my mind would start like craving things and feeling like I had lost things that I don't even have. Like, it was crazy. But that experience helped me to do what I call bring it in. I had to learn to bring it into the here and now. And the same thing with my meditation practice. I sit down We do an hour at a time. You're supposed to be still for an hour at a time. When I first started, it's like you sit down no matter how comfortable, you go into the meditation hall and you get your pillows and the people from the West be in chairs and you be propped up like, I'm ready. And then about 2 seconds in, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so uncomfortable. I'm itching. I'm sore. I hurt. Da, da, da. It took me a while to learn to sit my ass down, just sit.
Right.
But that's the same thing. Once I learned to sit, I had to bring it in. Like, my mind would be like, oh my God, there's an ant on me. I have to scratch, or I'm itching. I have to scratch, or, and it's like, Angela, just bring it in. Just be where you are right here and right now. And right here and right now, you're okay. You're not starving to death on a fast. You're not, eat an apple. You're okay. But and I notice the same thing now with the writing. Oh, this person is doing that. This person is doing that. I'm not doing this. Ah! And so I'm doing the same thing for myself. Like, girl, bring it in.
Okay.
Bring it in. Settle down, girl. Settle down. So that's definitely something that I've learned and having an opportunity to practice in a new way in this writing endeavor journey that I'm on. That's a big thing, and it's in motion. Like, I'm still working with it, so I don't feel like I'm on the other side of it. Like, oh girl, I remember when I used to have them problems. And then as artists, being around theater people, dancers, we're crazy. And so I understand that it's a lot that can be going on with us. It can show up in some kind of like out there ways. I've been around us all my life. I feel like I've always been like the sane one with a bunch of the, but now the way my brain is going sometimes, and it's hormonal too, it's a different thing. It's a new opportunity to bring it in. Did you have more that you've gotten from being a writer, or that surprised you about being a writer, or things you've learned?
Well, I might have already known this a little bit, but I learned that I'm not going to write every day, and that's okay. And I'm not going to outline shit. I'm not going to do it. And I learned that that's okay too. My practice has to be my practice. It's not going to be the same as somebody else's. And don't get all in my feelings because somebody else does it this way or that way. I got to do it the way I do it, what works for me. It's easy to look around when you're in community with other writers and authors and see there's some people who pump out books like babies, one after another after another after another.
Like dinner. They pump out books like meal, because it's like, a baby at least take 9 months. For some of these people, you be like, well, gosh darn, how are you? But some of them like babies.
Yeah, I think I can tell that some people write something and hold it until they have the other one written. That's part of their strategy, probably. I think I'm more like the birthing method. Like, I got to birth this child, and then I got the next one got to gestate so I can birth that one.
And you might need a break in between. Everybody, all of these, like, child after child after child. Growing a child, for some of us, not me, but for some people, it's a lot. For some people, just like in real life, the generation, my mama's daddies and them, they had 29 brothers and sisters by the same mama.
Right. My mother is one of 9. My father is one of 9. No, we're not doing that over here. But I'm pretty sure I know what I'm working on after I finish Mike's story. I'm going back to Bluff, the one set in Costa Rica, the YA novel. But I have some other ideas that I've come up with since then, but I got to do one at a time. I know that's another lesson. Otherwise, I'll get stressed. Like, whoever you are, whatever your medium is, you got to do it how you do it. And not like somebody else
does it. Like when we met with Hope, and I think she said she was outlining or she was doing something, then she realized that that's not her way. Just like I have a water drinking habit. So when I first started, what really, really worked for me, because my target was 1.5 liters a day, I would get 1.5 liters plastic jar. You know, I don't deal with plastic no more like that. But I used to get a 1.5 liter jar, and that would work for me. I could see where I was with my goal, and I could push and finish it. And all of a sudden, it stopped working. And I just had all of these jars that weren't finished. I had to switch it up. When I switched it up to like half-liter jars, I could like hand, you know, and yeah, you got to do you. You got to figure out what's going to work for you, and it can change too. And it's okay. It's a process, and sometimes looking at what other people do or trying out, you can find some things that work for you. But you may not. Sometimes it can be helpful to see what other people do. But yeah, like Monique Fisher.
She's cranking them out right now. I'm like, wow, okay.
Right. And it's really amazing. And everybody has their process. So yeah, definitely that one.
Or the writing machine.
Michael Laron.
Yeah. Oh my God. He churned out books. I was just like,
and see, that's the other thing too about both of them. They have very full agendas.
Right.
School, work, children, partners. That
makes them be very productive because they have to carve out the time to write, and so it is a habit. But I guess us, we kind of like, woo!
And plus I'm in the stage of life where I want to do what the F I want to do.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm like, listen, people, I know you want Mike's story, and I'm on it. But I'm gonna write when I want to write. Otherwise, you ain't gonna like it if I
It's not gonna be
out.
right. We have to find the things that work for us. For me, in the past and now, structures work for me. Like I told you, we're doing the writing, editing, and something else. I sprint daily. I be showing up every day. I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna do something for them 2 hours. Cause I said I was gonna do it. That I know that works for me. So, anything else?
The memoir writing. I'm taking a memoir writing class. And of course, memoir, you're writing about you, whatever aspect you pick or what moment in time or however you decide to structure it. I of course, don't know what my structure is going to be. I don't think it's going to have any structure because that makes more sense for Ayoka. Of course, mine going to be different from everybody else's. I think it's going to be just little snippets. You know, some poetry, some little short story, some graphics, some photographs. That's how I've attacked it. I only write for memoir once in a while. Look, usually coming up on when I got to present. It's how
That's like
goes.
the writer of the week. They kind of push you.
Right. So this is an ongoing class. There are people who have been in this class for years working on their memoir. When newbies come in, I haven't been in there a year yet, but when the new people come in, he can use exercises that will stimulate you if you don't know where to start or what to do. And it was some book called like writing a memoir in 30 days, which is crazy. It has exercises like day 1, day 2, day 3, and on to day 30. He sent us those to get us going and moving in the right direction. I'm still all over the place with that, but it has been very emotional. Some things that came to the surface from some of those daily exercises he gave us brought up stuff I hadn't thought about. A lot of it was from childhood. Not sure if it's the lesson, but starting healing or at least confronting forgotten memories. I don't even know how to characterize, but yes. So that's been going on too. So interesting journey. And then the other part of the memoir is hearing about consuming the writing of the other people working on their memoir. That is emotional as well because people be having stuff, reading it and sitting with it and then being able to be constructive to give them feedback and things that might help them continue. Because there's been some rough stuff up in there. I'm like, Lord, I wasn't ready for this. But still, it's a good experience. It's a safe space for people, and it has to be because there are people who are sharing things that they've never shared with anybody. And look, they're going to do it in the most public way. They're doing it in this memoir. It's an honor to, listen to people's stories. There's so many different types of people. The one thing that ties us together is we're either from or currently live in DC. It's more women than men. The men don't stick around, come in and out. There's one man that sticks around, and then our instructor is a male, but the rest are women. It's young, old. You got East Indian, black, white, Latina, from different African countries. It's varied, and it's interesting to hear people's stories and see how that layer, whether it's cultural, geographic, how that lens, is in their writing. I'm a nerd. We know this. So it's fascinating to me.
When you were talking about things coming up, we talked about Vipassana earlier. It reminded me that's one of the things when you do meditation, but also there are lots of ways that we have opportunities to encounter ourselves. And the way that I remember it being characterized in Vipassana is when things come up, you can unknot them. There are some knots that maybe you misunderstood something. It might be a soft knot. It might not be but as you sit, as you work with stuff, as you're ready, things come up and you can release certain things, let certain things go. Yeah, and art, I love the conversation that we had with Hope about using art as a tool to
Right.
move through shit and get shit off of you and free yourself, be free.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and I had actually made a note about Hope and also Monisha with her Healed from Scratch, how she is focusing on mental health after her own personal journey, which came to the surface when she wrote that book. It's so interesting how these things can bubble up when you're creatively expressing yourself. And even M. Rumble, when she was on, talking about writing her book about books being healing, she got kind of emotional and she was like, I don't know why I'm crying. In remembering some of the people that she's worked with as a social worker, watching their journey, watching their healing. I'm sure when you are in that position, you're helping someone else heal, but then you are also usually gaining insight into your stuff, whether it's consuming or producing. It is all doing something to make us learn and heal and get to the next place. In terms of consumption, there were a couple that came to mind. One is The Red Tent by Anita Diamant. It's about women in a specific time period in the past, about women being in community with each other within the red tent. The red tent is where they would go when they were on their cycle. And they would be in there together. First of all, it was fascinating to me when I read it, probably 30 years ago. I need to read it again. It has always stuck with me because it had such a beautiful way, which I never quite adopted, but I had more appreciation. It had such a beautiful way of looking at your menstrual cycle, and even more so building community during that time with other women. How we as women need other women because we have an energy that is, if you have a male partner, there's an energy that you need from being in community with women. I had definitely never heard it talked about that way. That's what I got from it. I can't remember detail, but I can remember just the feeling that I had from reading the book. The writing was so tender and so beautiful. And I was like, I'm in love with this book. Me and my godmother read that together.
Sweet.
So that might be another reason why it, holds a space. Another one that really, really impacted me was They Came Before Columbus by Ivan Van Sertima. It's about our history and the history of the country known as America and who was here before that. It's controversial, of course. Anything having to do with us is controversial. There were Native people. All of those Native people are not what we know as Native Americans. There were also African people there. It's a history lesson. When I read that book, I was probably in high school. I already had all this history in my brain full. People saw me coming like, oh Lord. Because I was all, David calls it being zealed up. I was all righteous and you need to know these things. And I was hitting them over the head with it. I mellowed out. I did. But, but that was one of many books. There are a lot of nonfiction books that I've learned from. But that, yes, that was another one. Why are you still laughing?
Because when I first became a vegetarian, I was an obnoxious vegetarian, and I'm sure people were like, right, like, oh God, here she comes. And when I came across one of the things I wanted to talk about was June Jordan's poem about my rights. Mm-hmm. And when I came across that poem, girl, everybody who I saw, if I'd be like, oh, have you heard June? And even today, and I need to take a walk to clear my brain about why I can't go out without changing my clothes, my shoes, my body posture, my status as a woman alone not being the point. I still remember it because, girl, I read it to so many different people so many different times, and I'm like, isn't that? And most people were like, uh-huh. They just really didn't understand how brilliant I thought this piece was. I'm sure it was annoying. Spontaneous poetry readings all over the place. Because of my passion. When you talked about They Came Before Columbus, I read 1492 maybe like 15 years ago. And that was an eye-opener for me. 1491. It's like basically before Columbus, what the Americans were like. They talk about evidence, the advanced complex civilizations and systems that were in place. It was impactful because I was given the information that when the white folks got here to this part of the world, the Indians wasn't doing shit. And the white folks came with civilization and made something from nothing. By the time I read it, I did not believe that. But I wasn't thinking about advanced complex civilizations. I wasn't thinking about cities. I wasn't thinking about metropolises. So that was mind-altering for me, paradigm shifting.
Another one was, I think it's called Nile Valley Civilization by Tony Browder. He is a friend of my mother's, and I used to go to his lectures as a teenager. So having it all in a book was, look, this is during my zealous periods. By the time I went off to college, I was still zealed up. Folk got it. Like you said, you learn history that you never, accurate history. And you like, well, what the fuck was, are you kidding me? So, yeah. Nile Valley Civilizations. Another one called 1666. I am an indigenous writer about a specific tribe outside of Virginia. 1666, white people came. They killed all the men and left the women and children, and then the women and children, they marched them for some god-awful distance. It gave me a deeper learning of stuff that I already knew. I didn't know about this particular tribe, and we know that tribes are very distinct from one another.
Oh.
It's a historical fiction.
Okay, it's by someone called Laura Chilton.
Yes.
Okay.
She had to fill in some blanks, but it is based in truth. It's a historical record. One thing that I learned in that book that I never knew, I'm seeing it a lot now in things that I consume, but I didn't know that Native Americans were enslaved as well with us. Or with
I knew that. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Okay.
I thought that the ones who weren't massacred were all pushed on reservations. Right. I didn't know any of them were forced into enslavement.
America's, their first go-to was to, like the Taino, was to try to enslave the folks that were here. In a lot of layers, you see that that iteration over. In the US at least, and I don't know about other parts of the world, it's so complicated because there were groups that were enslavers and there were that were enslaved. There were the Seminoles, who some people say it basically means maroons, like the runaways. So it included native folks and black folks who were like, fuck, forget this stuff.
Just to say it, I come out. It is what it is.
Are
Um,
you what, you think you grown or something, Ioka?
Last I checked, yeah, this tribe, pretty
Indigo.
sure they were sent to Barbados and Carolinas. That was mind blowing to me. I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that.
When books do that, expose me to a whole new. When I read
A
Tananarive
new,
Deuce,
a new wrinkle on your brain.
a new wrinkle. Right, oh, right. In Tananarive Deuce Immortal series, there was underground churches in Layla Bella. That's where the immortals lived. I thought it was something she made up, and I don't know what caused me to look it up.
To look it
But I
up.
was like, what in the? It was exciting to encounter that. The new Jim Crow was a total shift for me. It was a paradigm shift. I knew that a lot of us were imprisoned, and I had made a connection between imprisonment and enslavement. Imprisonment is enslavement, and enslavement
Yes.
is imprisonment. But the fact that so many more of us are involved with the system than we used to be, slavery times, very few of us are advocating for us because we've been criminalized even in our own minds. Like, oh, if they're in jail, it's because they're bad people, and we just gonna throw away the key and forget about them. So that shifted something for me. The new Jim Crow, definitely.
Right. I Eva Duvernay's
Oh, 13. Was it
13
13?
that had the same impact on people when they watched that.
And then how Europe underdeveloped Africa. It added another layer. Like, I know that shit is not accidental, but it was making the connection with African people all over the place, and how there's that deliberate creating a situation where we can be exploited and taken advantage of, and our resources, whether our resources are the land, whether our resources are our minds, our energy, all of those things started popping for me. I started seeing connections where I hadn't seen connections before. That probably was one of the books that got me thinking Pan-African in a way that I hadn't before. Really seeing when people say African Americans are a colony within the states, it's things I can see now that I didn't see before. Coming into womanhood, Aki Shenge, Sassafras, Cypress, and Indigo, how she treated that subject was beautiful.
I've never read that before. Okay,
Mm.
I'm gonna have to write it down.
When you were talking about the red tent, made me think about how I felt about that. In the same way, we need to talk about mental health more openly, and people moving through issues and dealing with issues. Also, as women, we need to talk about ourselves and our experience in our body in tender ways. We struggle, but treating ourselves good and taking good care of ourselves. So that was one of those for me. Another one, and I didn't, that shifted in terms of like Pan-Africanism, was jambalaya. And I think I read jambalaya when I got to New York for college. At the same time, I got exposed to the Caribbean Cultural Center. There were conversations about candomblé and santeria and voodoo and hoodoo, the connections that combined with jambalaya opened my mind. The fact that African people, you can see us and our culture in different ways all over the place. I had somebody who I think is a wise woman. She said, oh, isn't hoodoo just slavery junk or stuff that's ignorant, backwards, not useful anymore? I was surprised, but when I thought about it, the general conversation pushes that narrative. Like all things related to black folks, for the most part, the propaganda is so different from the truth. So
Right. A reason for that, of course, we didn't come to the United States. With that said, in addition, other groups that have migrated to the United States, there are groups of us who, not the entire group, but subsets within those groups that are shooting for the American dream or whatever, and so start suppressing parts of ourselves to assimilate. That's when you stop the oral tradition, you stop sharing those lessons, those recipes, those practices like Vodun and Hoodoo and roots and even natural medicine and all of these things, they get lost. So it's so beautiful to me when I see it spring up and somebody's family is steeped in knowledge. I'm like, yes, they decided to hold on to it. They may not have talked about it in public, but
Public.
within their family, they continue to pass that knowledge down. Even a lot of migrants did it with their language. That still just wrecks my brain. It really truly does. Probably because we no longer had a language. You came with a language and you're not holding on to, you're not teaching your children and your grandchildren. I'm like, what?
Girl, let me talk to you about talking to people all over the world. The hegemony, the dominance of English, the impact of that is disturbing. When I started working with people internationally working on English, I just thought, oh, linguistic exchange. Some people want to learn English, some people want to learn Spanish, some people want to learn Wolof, some people want to learn Twi. Out here learning stuff, yay! The financial imperative, the pressure that people are under to learn English in order to survive, in the same way that in the States people push their culture down to assimilate to survive. I was talking to this woman in Saudi Arabia. She had to stop speaking English at home so that her sons would learn Arabic. They're Saudi Arabian. They're in Saudi Arabia. And she's like, her sons, they speak English. Part of it is because it's easier. One woman I talked to, she was saying some of the toys and stuff have English words on them, and she covers them up because she doesn't want that to be her child's first language. Yeah. It's because, of course, language is culture. It's also the culture, the propaganda. It's intense, disturbing.
Let's back up for a second. I don't want to get all the way off topic.
I know.
When you say culture, what culture do you mean?
Okay, so look, language and culture are intimately connected. For example, American English is violent. We like, oh, let me shoot this idea by you. There's a lot of violent metaphors in American English, and that's a reflection of our culture. In Alaska, they might have 50 words for snow because that's part of their culture. Whereas we just be like, oh, it's, snow. We might have like 2 or 3 expressions for snow because that's not a part of our culture. Language and what we need to express is a reflection of who we are culturally. So when you lose languages, you lose aspects of humanity. It's like the importance of us writing, the importance of people telling their stories, an expression of humanity. If there's only one voice and one story told, we ain't got shit. We need each other's stories. We need the variety. We need the stimulation to continue to grow and develop as humans. But things are just like we are moving in that direction of like oneness, and it's not the godly oneness. Like, we are all one. It's the demonic oneness. Disturbing, very disturbing.
Biography of Malcolm X was another for me. There was a time when I was going to convert to Islam. Not the nation, Orthodox Islam. I was raised in Catholicism. My mom pulled us out of that when I was about 13. I had done a lot of studying. I had some classes in school, and Islam was the first time a faith had touched me, had spoken to me. And I was planning on coming back to it because when it spoke to me, I was about to go to college. And I knew that the timing wasn't right. When you study Islam and its pillars, one thing you learn is the importance of being a good Muslim and what that looks like. Being honest with myself, I knew I couldn't commit to that right then. That was going to be a shit show. I had intended on circling back. However, I want to say it was around that time that I had been doing a lot of reading and going to meetings that the Nation of Islam has. More on the history piece as a black person, not so much the faith piece. Orthodox Islam and Nation are different. Some of the tenets are the same, but they're different. Look it up. Anyway, I can remember I used to go hear Farrakhan speak many times, and I dragged my mother along sometimes. Once I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, that shifted the ground beneath me. And I was like, disappointment isn't a deep enough word. So disillusioned and so shamed, really. And I know there were layers to it. However, that's how I felt about it. And of course, I stopped going to hear him speak. And I just divorced myself from that. As I got older, sometimes I would buy the papers because they be knowing some things. Still had respect for the organization because of the positive impact it has had on so many cities and so many young men especially. So I still had that respect for it. But it just, yeah, I'm going to say this, but I'm not an Oprah fan. I can remember watching a Oprah Winfrey episode, and I probably watched it because they had Malcolm X's daughters on there. And there was a young man in the audience that stood and had a question as they allowed questions. I can't remember what his exact question was, but he basically was dealing with what I had dealt with so long ago. He was saying, what words do you all have for young men such as myself who have considered joining the nation and have received so much support in our communities, because it's been hard for me to reconcile being a part of an organization that killed your father. Her answer disappointed me, but I get it. They killed her father. But I was hoping that this is 30 years after the fact, and all that we know since then. I was hoping that she would understand what he was asking, almost pleading, and she couldn't give it. And his face was so sad. And I was like, but, were I in her shoes, could I have done better? It wasn't a judgment. I was dismayed for all of us. Even I can remember when I went and saw the movie that Spike did. I was in college, and me and my girlfriend went and saw it. And even knowing what is going to happen at the end of the movie, we sat in the theater in our seats for a long time. The impact was just... And maybe it was because it was another creative expression of a life that was taken too soon. You know what I mean? It just hit me, and maybe because I was a little bit older and I saw... I don't know, it was almost like seeing with new eyes what was taken from us and what could have been the new organization he started, and his more global perspective, his lessons from Orthodox Islam, and how he was now approaching the position that Black people were in America. So I can remember that heaviness leaving that theater like, we fucked up. Like, what we's gonna do?
Right.
That's something else that had an impact on me, that movie, in a way that I wasn't expecting, because again, we already know the story. We already know the details. We already know the betrayal. We know the violence, but it just hit in a different way. Yeah, so let's talk about something else. I don't want to end on a downer.
Well, when you were talking about Islam, on the periphery, I have this impression of an oral tradition of reciting the Quran. That is beautiful and fascinating.
Yeah.
Books, I don't know if we were talking about this, but sometimes we get books that are from 100 years ago or from the past. The conversation is alive, but when people are trying to get rid of books, you can never get rid of the truth. When people have committed it to memory, that's powerful. earlier when you were talking, I was thinking about this woman. Can't remember where I encountered this story, but she was saying she's Taino and that hadn't had any exposure to that aspect of her culture, that aspect of her heritage, and that she started dreaming, her ancestors were sending her dreams. She was dreaming things that had happened. That idea was beautiful also, because my second husband used to always say, nothing in the universe is ever hidden, lost, or concealed. When I would lose something, I'm like, oh my God, where is so-and-so? Ah! And then he'd say, nothing in the universe is ever hidden, lost, or concealed. And it would kind of get on my nerves, because I'm like, it's some shit that's lost, sir. Come on now. I know you're trying to cool me out, but some stuff is lost. But when I thought about that is like, it's some stuff that we think is lost or is messed up or can't be recovered. And in God's world, trust and relax, we have everything that we need.
I don't feel like that anymore. At that time, I was so young, and to have that feeling, I wasn't a good. I think I was probably about. I was still in college. I guess I was about 20. I don't know. I can't remember what year that movie came out. I saw that in Philly though.
Oh.
With my girlfriend.
1992. Yeah, I was about to graduate from college.
That movie in West Philly.
There's one more thing, something that I consumed that impacted me as a woman and as a writer. J. California Cooper. The quality of her voice, how she writes, the tone, how comforting it feels, like somebody's just talking to you, giving you wisdom. I was struck by that and enjoyed it.
Yeah.
There was one story about a guy who had a really big penis and a woman who had a really big vagina, and they were just having a hard time finding people that would be satisfied and could deal with them. And then they eventually found each other.
Oh my God, I have forgotten that story.
That's maybe because at that time I was feeling like there's nobody for me. That just held hope for me. Like there's a lid for every pot. You know, then the other story that I thought about, and I don't remember the names of the stories, but there's like this woman who had been married, and she had had a good relationship with her husband, and then she ended up marrying this other guy. This other guy, he wanted his bath at a certain temperature. Instead of cooking meat once a week, he wanted her to cook he had all of these rules. At one point in the book, when she was finished, she was like, one of us is crazy in this situation, and if I stick with this, then I'm going to be the crazy one. That was that idea of you can step on. You don't have to engage with the craziness, but if you do, you can go down that path. But he'd always be like, your first husband spoiled you and all of this. I've always been spoiled by my husbands on different levels. When I was like actively dating, people would be like, you're spoiled. And I'm like, I'm not spoiled, I'm ripe. That's like when it's at the sweetest, that's the best.
Right, right.
Spoiled is. And
right.
so in that was another story that really stuck with me and gave guidance. It's okay to compromise and go along to a point, but there does come a point with some stuff where it's like, yeah, no, we not gonna do that. We good.
Yeah, she was. Yes, I really love her writing as well.
As a consumer, reading is an escape for me. I don't know that I have a relationship as a producer. Maybe it's a place of power for me. I can create the world exactly how I want to create it. I want to be God. Maybe that's hampering me in some way because it's from a mental place, not an emotional place. We need so much as people. We need so much. And I feel the core of it is recovering and connecting with our love of ourselves as individuals, as people. We the shit, we like we gotta know that it's right there for us. We just gotta. All right, we done been just talking and talking and talking, but it's good. Okay. Fist up. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Writing While Black. Right on.
Reading, learning, growing, creating, while building, living, thinking, healing, loving, building, writing while black.